the whole world at our feet, watching seasons change. Our roads were lined with adventure, mountains in the way couldn't keep us from the sea. Here we stand, open arms. This is home where we are, ever strong in the world that we made. I still hear you in the breeze, see your shadows in the trees, holding on, memories never change.
Okay, good evening everyone, and welcome to the 100th live stream. Today's moderator is going to be no one, because all my moderators, or actually most of them, are going to be with me on the live stream, and we are going to do a panel / a Q&A. So if you have any questions, we will be looking at the chats quite randomly today, and we will be discussing, random things. So without further ado, I'm going to switch my view to a somewhat, crude and without layout, desktop view of Hangouts, so we can get going and I can get my crew to introduce themselves. So here we go. Here you can see Foxtrot Charlie at the top. You can see Disconnected on the bottom left, and you can see KrzaQ in a mask, or rather his avatar, on bottom right. Maryush is not here with us. He might join us on the chat. So yeah, that would make all of my current team. And let me make sure that everyone hears me. Perfect. So what I would like to start with is for my crew to introduce themselves. I guess Please let me know if you can see everyone on the chat. But let's start with introductions. Since I have actually a really amazing moderator crew. Like they are way overqualified for these positions that they choose to be in. So I'll just let them talk about themselves. Foxtrot is actually the one on the top, so he will get to start. So Foxtrot, who are you? Please introduce yourself. What do you do? And why have you chosen this thankless job?
So, hi, my name is Foxtrot, and I'm doing security stuff at IDEs company. Sorry, something happened on my computer, and it works now. And in my spare time, I usually play CTFs and do stuff like that, mostly beats juggling and hackings. And 2 years ago, Ginvale asked about someone who could help him with the streams. So I volunteered, and I'm here now.
Perfect. Okay, so I guess the next one online would be disconnected if we are going counterclockwise. So disconnected. Who are you? What are you doing here? And how did you end up in this thankless job?
Yeah, so I'm a security engineer at Hobbies. So I'm doing mostly security audits. I also play CTS in Just Kind of Fish team and contribute to some open source projects. I don't really remember how I got here, probably through IRC channel. And I guess that's it.
Okay, and KrzaQ would be the last person to introduce himself.
So, hi, I'm KrzaQ. I'm a software engineer and backtrace.io. And how I got here, I have actually no idea. I think I met Ginvale on IRC like half a decade ago or longer, and it went from there. So, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, to chat a little about my team, like they're all either CTF players from awesome teams or CTF captains from awesome teams, or in case of KrzaQ, that would be a top contributor at Stack Overflow. Could you tell us a little bit about your programming, KrzaQ?
Oh yeah. So I think it was around October 2016. I had a really crazy month. I didn't have too much to do at my real work, which back then was automation of warehouses, and I do mean actual warehouses, no database stores or anything like this. And I decided to max out my Stack Overflow profile, and I decided, well, I did decide that. So in a month, I was the top 1 C++ contributor on Stack Overflow by a margin of ×3 to the second person. And yeah, it was a full-time job, and it taught me a lot about being precise, because Stack Overflow is really like, the community really likes to be precise. To not use a different word.
Yeah, they care about details, which is a good thing at the end of the day. So yeah, that's actually like super amazing. And for some more context, KrzaQ is basically the person who I kinda worry every time I write something in C++ and KrzaQ is around, because he is better in C++ than I am, and I can stand my ground in C++, which like says something. So yeah, we had a lot of discussions back in the days and even currently about C++ and the details, but at the end of the day, if KrzaQ says something works like this, I still argue, but I don't argue as much as I would normally. Perfect. So actually, all of these people who are on the live stream are also involved in PageOut. And can you tell us a little bit about your role in PageOut? I guess we can start with Foxtrot again.
So I'm extending our to-do lists and appending new tasks to the system that makes our magazine happen. So literally it takes all your great articles and then put it together in some type of automated way. I know that's not the way you do it in real life, but well, we are paged out and we have our own rules. And so that's basically my job. And I don't remember how it's called something like DTP programmer, I think. Can they
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong?
No, that's actually it. Instead of having a typical DTP artist which puts together articles into a magazine, I decided to ask Foxtrot to basically write scripts for us to replace DTP artist in this case. So yeah, we do not have a DTP artist for PageOut. We just have an awesome set of scripts which Foxtrot is maintaining. When we have disconnected, what's your role in PageOut?
Basically reviewing articles. So that's it for most of it.
Yeah, and I would actually also say that it's the same for KrzaQ. And this will kind of change soon when we have a new process in place. But I guess the third issue is a little bit delayed. That's kind of my fault. But we'll get there. So I do not really have a plan for this live stream. This is the 100th live stream. So we're just going to answer questions basically and talk about what people are talking on the chat. So hi everyone on the chat. We will be looking there and we'll be discussing random things. So if anyone sees anything interesting, just feel free to jump in. One thing I do see is a question for KrzaQ, which would be, what kind of development KrzaQ does as a software engineer? Is it game development? Is it web development, front-end, back-end? KrzaQ, what do you do?
Okay, so I basically never touched any front-end development besides my personal projects, and whenever you see them, you definitely see that I am not a professional in this regard. And otherwise, I mostly do backends and middleware, so to speak. So anything that doesn't directly touch the end user, I would say, unless they are a console user. I did do game development for like 5 months in one company, but it did not turn out to be something that I would like to do. So, yeah.
Okay. So here's a question for the room. Who did front-end development, like JavaScript? Who's a HTML programmer here?
Probably no one.
No one? No HTML programmers? Okay, I think like the role, that's my role in that case. I do surprisingly a lot of HTML programming, or actually like JavaScript programming nowadays.
Have you done anything in CSS?
Yeah, I'm currently relearning everything I knew about CSS. It's the problem when you acquire skills in... So my first website, and I'm actually quite curious about your websites, folks. My first website was done in Microsoft Word, which generated HTML files, and that was 97, I believe.
So was mine. Sorry.
Really? Yeah, go ahead.
It was 98.
So what website was that in your case?
Oh, I did create some news page about StarCraft 1.
No way.
It never went out of my family. Only my cousins saw it.
My first website, also in Word, was a local StarCraft 1 clan website. So, wow, that's a nice coincidence. So Foxtrot disconnected. What was your first website in?
Well, I haven't written any in my life, probably,
What?
or maybe some.
You have a blog.
Hello World.
Just saying.
Yes, but this blog is totally automated.
Is it WordPress?
Yeah, it's made by Hugo Satic content generator. So I put some files in raw Markdown, and then it's built by Travis CI, and then pushed to my repository on GitHub.
That's cheating.
Probably a little bit.
What about the style? Did you create the CSS, or is that like a theme which you found online?
No, I just found one guy on the internet and then asked him about this layout and asked about a few changes. He showed me how to do it, and well, my blog looks like it is. So I haven't really written any kind of CSS or HTML myself. Probably that's a lie, but well, I'm not in web stuff. Maybe not in creating web stuff. I usually break websites, but that's what I do for a living.
Fair enough. Disconnected, what about you?
Oh, so I did like a backend development back then, but even previously, when I was back in school, I used to write some like HTML sites with like Macromedia Dreamweaver. It was like this what you see is what you get software. Of course, the websites weren't really complex or anything. And currently, I don't do much web development. My blog is in Jekyll, but I would like to rewrite it in something in the future.
Okay, let's see. Next question from the chat. How did you guys get together? Okay, so let's see what I remember. I remember that with KrzaQ, as KrzaQ already mentioned, we were on the same IRC channel, had like common friends on that channel, and then started chatting about programming. I absolutely do not remember Disconnected. Did we meet on Uwu team?
No, it was on IRC, but we meet previously on like Python PL, and we talked a bit, but I don't even remember that much.
That had to be some long time ago. And Foxtrot?
Well, I got here from the internet probably, and then you needed a moderator, so I volunteered. And then I had to master IRC and some weird protocols and text-based communicators without any GUI like Discord. And now we are here.
Well, technically, you could always download MIRC. It's a pretty popular client, which is a graphical client.
Okay, but when you want to be a terminal cowboy, you have to do it the hard way.
That is true. Like, only you basically use Netcat to connect to the IRC server. That's the only way. Perfect. Okay, question for everyone. What was your first job in security and how did you get them? KrzaQ, you never worked in security, really, did you?
Yeah, so my answer is, I guess, the shortest. There was no job. Next.
Well, how did you get your first job as a programmer in that case?
In that case, so I guess this counts freelance. So I guess I was just out of the uni, or more or less I was out of the uni, and I was basically recommended by a friend. I went to the job interview and I got the job. It was really nothing special. In the process, at least, the job was quite fine.
Okay, so it was basically through networking. You got recommended by a friend and went through the
pretty
interviews.
much. Yeah. I was really happy being able to show all my previous works from freelancing.
So that also helped, which is, I guess, an important hint or tip. I guess that also answers the question. There was another question. Did you go to the university? So you said you were fresh out of uni. Which university did you go to?
So I was fresh out of uni because I technically was not. I was still not done with my master thesis. Or it was not master thesis, the previous one, the bachelor, I think. Anyway.
What was it, bachelor or was it engineering thesis?
Engineering. But I have no idea how to translate some of those terms. So yeah, I
don't think it's translatable.
The first tier, basically. And
so was it computer science? Was it?
It was actually automatics and robotics. So it was very much in sync with my first job, which was the warehouse automation. And yeah, it was very, very IT related.
Cool. Okay, so let's go the other way. Let's go clockwise. Disconnected. What about you? What was your first job in security and how did you get it? And did you go to a university?
Yeah, I did go to university. I have a master's degree. And it was like computer science, applied computer science, actually. Regarding the first security job, it was like pen testing web apps mostly in a corporation in Poland. How did I get it? Basically, my friend worked there and he kind of started the team there, or actually was hired to like start a team. Yeah, I got there and I did a bunch of pen tests. But previously, I was I learned security from CTFs mostly, so I had some kind of background from it. that's it.
It's cool. So which university did you go to?
It's AGH, USD, which is like a university in Krakow, one of the biggest in Krakow.
Perfect. Okay, Foxtrot, your turn.
So currently I'm still studying on Poznań University of Technology, or Politechnika Poznańska, if you speak Polish. And well, I'm working at ISEC, and this is my first job in security. I needed to get an assignment on my studies, and I have written to this company, and actually they accepted me. And well, they are pretty good guys. Some of them have written articles to FRAC or something like that, which I got to know after I got to this work. So, well, I cannot tell you anything else because that's my first job in IT security.
And did you go to a university? You did mention it. Sorry. Perfect. So I guess my turn. My first job in security, I was basically sitting on an IRC channel, and then suddenly somebody joins the channel and asks, "Hey, who wants to work for an antivirus company?" And that's basically like a short version of a story how I got my first job in security. As for university, I did. Back then, I was still on the University of Technology in Wrocław, or Politechnika Wrocławska. On my second year, I believe, of computer science, I did finish my engineering physics or engineering degree, which is kind of an equivalent of a bachelor's degree around these parts of Europe. And but I never finished my master's. I actually left the university without completing my master's. Cool. Tell us about how can some beginners make some small amount of money at the beginning. I guess this is related to security. How do you do basically freelancing, or like how do you get rewards in security? Anyone?
Well, I would suggest doing bug bounty stuff because it's pretty safe and secure, because, well, you won't be sued if you really break something. And sometimes it doesn't require a lot of skills to, for example, apply some attacks on HTTP request smuggling stuff, and you can find some write-ups on the internet. And a lot of companies, I think that even Tesla, had some bugs related to this thing I mentioned before. And you can, of course, play CTFs to gather more knowledge and probably try to utilize it on bug bounties. And there are a lot of platforms on the internet you can find such programs.
So did you ever do any bug bounties, folks? Like, this is a question for the room.
Well, okay, so
not really, but I reported some bugs here and there. Yeah, but I actually didn't get any bounty out of reporting bugs.
So I reported something like disconnected, and actually it was accepted, but I got a mug. So, well, it's not money, but still it's something you get delivered to your home. So I think that you can count it as earned.
Okay, was it a mug with like a text on it, like it's something?
Well, it was with company's logo, and it said something like security guru or something, which I'm currently not, but it was a nice gift. I really
Cool.
like it. It was my first achievement in IT security world.
Yeah, I actually did some bug bounties, not a lot. I think Mozilla still owes me $500 from like 2008 or something, which they never paid me for some reason. Apart from that, I did get some cash from here and there. I guess one thing which was discussed on the channel a few days ago is that even if you do bug bounties, you still need to remember that you're not going to get the cash fast. First of all, even if you find a bug and you report it and it's actually a proper bug, it will still take a few months to usually pay it out. So that's something to take into account. Like, you're not, if you need money next week or like in a month, you're not going to get that from a bug bounty. You're probably going to get the money like in 3 months, maybe half a year. So that's something to take into account. Yeah, apart from that, like all the easy stuff is usually already like reported. So what you have to do in bug bounties is you have to look for much deeper. Cool, let's talk about other stuff. So you can earn money from bug bounties, right? And security. And also let's include programming into this. KrzaQ, you did mention you did freelancing. How do you find freelancing job for programming? Like in security, people do need to know programming anyway, so why not like do a freelancing job? How does freelancing work?
Okay, so I cheated a little in my case, and I actually do mean it literally because
I know you basically hacked into the company, like, and sent an email saying you're the boss of the company to some manager and say like hire this guy to do freelancing for us. What was that?
I would consider this a security / bug bounty job, actually.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I was writing automation tools, so to speak, for an MMORPG game, basically. And I had a lot of customers this way who also wanted to automate some tasks that the game client wouldn't like automated. And I'm being vague for a reason.
For obvious reasons. The sins of the past. So one of the, like, I always found like automating things in MMORPGs pretty interesting, as in I was playing some MMORPGs back in the, what was it, like 90s, late 90s basically, early 2000s maybe. And one of the ways to automate something was to make an in-game macro, like the game would allow you to like bind a key to whatever action, and then you put a book on the space. You bound it to space and you put a book on space and you went away. So basically space was always pressed because a book was lying on it, like physical book, and it would just repeat the action. So that was one of the first pretty mechanical, I would say that's mechanical engineering, not really software development, but
there were tricks like this, but I was a little more sophisticated. I basically wrote my own client of the game. I did reverse with no clean room the protocol. It was already documented on some websites relating to the game, but not all of it. And in the end, I had a custom client with a JavaScript engine that allowed you to write anything you want. I was quite proud of it.
That sounds pretty, yeah, I would say pretty advanced. Cool. Okay, so other ways to make money in security. It's a good question. Like one of the ways would be to just write to various companies and ask for an internship, especially for a paid internship. Maybe somebody has something. You can also like ask companies in security like, hey, do you need like some easy tasks done which you can just freelance to me because you're just learning and you're looking for money. And yeah, like some companies might have something. Like for example, I don't know, like here's like a malware sample which nobody wants to analyze, just go and analyze it. Or like here are like a format of the logs and just write a parser for it, which we can then use. Like simple jobs like that, some companies might have tasks like that, and some of them might not even require NDAs, I guess. Okay, let's move on, unless someone has any other ideas how to get money in security, especially if you're not working yet.
Some companies had some kind of like bounties on GitHub within their tools, but not so many. Yeah.
So you mean like patch bounties, or do you mean like create a feature bounty?
Either, like both of those.
Yeah, I would consider this more programming, but I was about to suggest it as well.
Yeah.
And there is also a lot of websites like something.com, where you can be hired to create stuff, though there is a lot of competition from the third world countries, and the pricing is quite low usually.
Yeah, it kind of depends on where you live, right? if you like live in Switzerland, like in the most expensive city in the world, like Zurich, you probably might not be able to live for the typical prices on such websites. On the other hand, if you like you are in another country in a more decent economy, you might be able to like live out of freelancing for at least some time or have some extra money from it. That's true. Apart from that, well, winning competitions gives you some money, which I already mentioned. At least two people here are CTF players. KrzaQ, I know you also participated in some, maybe not CTFs, but other type of like tournaments or programming competitions.
I actually participated in two CTFs, I think, or three.
Okay, here we go. So the question is like, are there any awards in such competitions? Like, don't think only about CTFs, think in general. Can you actually live out of these awards? And this is a question for the room.
Probably no.
Maybe if you are the top one and you are a team of one, then maybe.
Yeah. There are a lot of problems with CTFs in general. Like, teams are usually kind of big, I would say. So it's probably not so good.
Okay, we can see the chat by the way on the live stream. No, I think the quality is pretty good actually. For the comment from first was that the quality might be because someone's downloading something, but I think the quality is pretty good. Yeah, I actually agree with what you folks said about money from competitions. Sorry, I will not be modest. I won my share of competitions, and there are some CTFs where you get a lot of money. It's still not the amount of money you would earn as a top level engineer. So yeah, it's like cool pocket money. And I do remember like when I was still in my university, I won some reverse engineering competition and I got $6,000. For me, that was a lot of money. I just like could get a top level PC and still have some savings. So or lost. Perfect. Now, Foxtrot Charlie, there's a question explicitly for you here. How does it? I guess how does it feel? How do you like living in my basement? And why does it look like that you're living in my basement?
Well, it's pretty comfortable, and I can even have some water, one bottle every day. So I think that's really cool. And we are even allowed to have some, mobile phones and stuff like that to contact our friends if we have any, and family.
How's the reception in my basement?
Well, it's pretty nice. I like it, but it's living in a basement has some disadvantages, and I really would love to see some sun someday. But currently, there's this lockdown kind of thing, so we are not even allowed to leave our this second-based basement. So, and that's why
there you go.
You see some glitches behind disconnected chair. There's some action at the beginning of the stream.
Yeah, exactly. So that also answers the question, can you earn money by being a moderator at Genbase stream? No, and you will be locked in a basement. But you get water. Just, lower your expectations. Perfect. Here's a question for everyone, basically, so let's go one way or the other. What do you do in your spare time beyond coding and hacking? Let's start with KrzaQ.
What do you mean spare time?
Well, there is so the concept of spare time is something which is like if you take the whole day and you subtract the amount of time you code and you hack, then this is what is left. I think it's called sleeping normally, but it's probably some other English word for that.
Okay, all joking aside, I think I do the same thing that I do for professionally, basically.
Do you play any games?
Well, sometimes. I did play like 20 hours this year, so I guess you could say yes. I do play Heroes 3 and FTL, and I think those games are the only ones that I do play.
Okay,
So,
fair
yeah.
enough.
I mean, I can say I like, romantic walks on the beach and reading books, but of those two, actually, only books are true.
So the things you write in your resume. Okay, Foxtrot, you're next.
Well, in my spare time, I basically play CTFs, or I'm trying to play CTFs. We are not the top Polish team, and I cannot assure you, because there is a small story that we had Ginvale on our small conference in Poland, and by the time Dragon Sector was on the second place of the CTF teams on CTF time. And at the beginning of his talk, he started. He said that well, we are top two. We are the second team in the bunch, but I promise we can do better than that till the end of the year. And actually, they did. But I'm trying to.
That's a nice, modest way to present me. What I said is it's a bug and we will fix it. And we did fix it.
Yeah, I like cycling, so sometimes I move myself to get in shape and don't stay in the same position for the whole day. I'm reading books. I have seen a question about crypto book or cryptography resources, and I think that we can answer that later. And well, I'm learning how to solder, but maybe I won't show you how I'm doing it now because, well, it's not something I'm proud of. And yes, I'm hanging out on IRC, so that's pretty much everything I do every day.
Do you play any games?
Sometimes I'm moderating Gunveil's live streams, and I'm his voice in his head. Recently, I started playing Counter-Strike Go, but I suck at it, so maybe. No, I'm not playing games.
What's your rank?
I don't know. It's no, I won't tell you silver 8 because I don't know if the silver is. I'm not telling you a higher rank that I am, but it's one of the first ranks you get after winning 10 matches, I think.
That can vary. Like you can get even close to global after 10.
Okay, so I cannot even start matchmaking, or I don't want to do that in the game. So I tell my mates that I don't know how to do this. So also I don't know what my rank is. But if you want to play, just write on IRC, and I will tell you my nickname on Steam.
Sounds fair. Sorry to put you on the spot if you're still in silver. Okay, disconnected. What about you?
So mainly playing CTFs or playing some sports, but not really much. I enjoy ice skating, for example. And regarding gaming, I play on Nintendo Switch and usually with my friends, like Ultimate Chicken Horse. That's a fun one. Yeah.
Anything else? I don't know. Are you a singer at a heavy metal band or something?
No, not really.
Okay, so some of you mentioned books. What kind of books are you reading? Let's go with KrzaQ. KrzaQ, you did mention books.
I did mention books. I do like fantasy and science fiction for the non-technical books.
What's your favorite?
I think it would be the Dresden Files series.
Okay. It's the one KrzaQ recommended to me, and I just I went through all the 15 books like that, like one after the other, and then my wife got hooked. So that's a really good series to recommend, Dresden Files.
Yeah, the first time I read it, I read like 10 books within 48 hours, so it was really crazy, and I did have time back then, so it was cool. But yeah, I guess that's mostly it.
Cool. Foxtrot, you mentioned books as well.
Well, actually, I thought about this question before, so I have a pile of books next
Show
to
them.
me. But well, I'm mostly reading technical books, so this is my first book about hacking ever, and actually it is in Polish, but you can get it in English too, and it is Hacking the Art of Exploration or something like that by John Erickson, and it's pretty old book, but I still highly recommend that because
A classic.
yeah, that's a classic. Of course, if you can into Polish, and actually you should, because a lot of great IT books are written in Polish. I highly suggest getting this one because, well, that's a great book, but I really enjoyed that. And uh, recently I was reading, well, something about ARM exploitation, and these are in English. And actually, you can find Billy Alice on Twitter. This guy is younger than me, and it makes me pretty jealous because he does really a great job with ARM low-level exploitation. And someone asked about a book about cryptography or resources about cryptography, and probably it's not about RSA, but it's a modern crypto book. This one is in Polish, but you can get it in English, and I think that Ginvale was talking about it on his live streams. So if you are probably not looking for the for your first book about crypto, you should probably search for modern crypto. I think that's modern crypto, and I will correct myself in a second if I'm not right with this title. But
No, I think it's like Modern Cryptography by Jean-Philippe Almasson.
Yes.
From No Starch.
Yep. So, well, I'm reading mostly technical books, and in my spare time, I'm reading about politics and stuff like that. But I don't have these books near myself, so I won't show you any.
Cool. Okay, disconnected. Any books?
Yeah, I actually read recently the Tangled Web from Michał Zalewski, and I have a bunch of technical books that are waiting to be read, actually. Yeah.
Are you reading any fiction? Any non-technical books?
Not much recently. I like fantasy books, but I haven't read it for a long time.
Okay. What was your favorite back then?
The Witcher series.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact book name, but yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. I've read it a lot of times. So Witcher was actually coming out when I was in primary school. And yeah, like I think when I started reading it, only 2 volumes of the main series were coming out. So I was like quite happy to read the next one and the next one and the next one as they were coming out. It's a pretty good series.
I read
cool.
most of it at once. So
yeah, lucky you. I had to wait for them to be written. Yeah, so I guess I can answer that as well. For spare time activities, that would be, well, playing computer games. I currently play Apex Legends with some people from Discord. We are making a decent team, I would say. We are winning some games. That's pretty fun. Apart from that, I like hiking, especially like in Switzerland. There's a lot of places you can hike. Currently, obviously, you can't because thank you, virus. But usually, I sometimes do some photography. I'm not saying I'm good, but I made a couple of photos which I like. But more than that, I really enjoy reading books, like non-technical books, which would be again like same as mentioned here, usually like fantasy and science fiction. The Dresden Files, for example, that KrzaQ mentioned, were amazing. Recently, I read everything which came out from the Honorverse series, which was recommended to me on Twitter. And there's like 15 main books and around 15 or a little bit more additional novels, side stories, and so on. And that was an amazing write, and I can fully recommend the like Honor Harrington series by David Weber. That's absolutely amazing. Cool. Let's see what other questions there are. Oh, there's a nice one about open source. Are you involved in any open source projects? I guess I'll start. I'm not really involved with any open source projects apart from the ones which I'm publishing on my GitHub, which are like just the code I write. What about you folks? We can do it in random order, meaning disconnected. You go first.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can start. So I'm actually contributing to PwnDebug, which is a plugin for GDB for like reverse engineering or exploitation. And apart from that, I also do some open source like contributions at work. But yeah.
Cool. Foxtrot.
Currently I'm studying, working, and doing stuff like that, so I don't have particular time to contribute to open source, but I promise when I get rid of my long to-do list, I will do some proper coding in the future. Soon TM, trademark.
Perfect. KrzaQ, did you do any open source?
So any open source, yeah. I think anything on my GitHub is actually MIT modified licensed, unless it's already licensed by under something else, but it's a very tiny amount of work. I also did submit a patch or two to the Qt project, but it was way long ago. But overall, I don't do it a lot, and it's on and off. So I would say in general, I do not contribute to any open source project.
Okay.
I can
perfect.
also add
go ahead.
some more. Like I recently contributed to Linux kernel, but it was like 2 or 3 patches that were one-liners, like fixing some like funny bugs with off by one errors.
Nice. Were they accepted? Are they already in the like?
I think 2 of them were accepted and are actually like kind of released, and I think there are 2 more. I have to like fix one of them because I signed it badly. Yeah.
Okay, now here's a question which will probably, I hope it will not destroy our friendship, but it is an important question and I will like KrzaQ to start. Spaces or tabs?
Okay, I saw it. So it is a great question. And in the past, I was very firmly in the Teams tabs, but then Stack Overflow released their, what was it? They posted that programmers who use spaces earn more, and I switched overnight to spaces. And it worked, so it's great.
It's a great tip. Okay, Foxtrot.
Okay, so I'm definitely in Spaces team, but I intend using tabs, and my editor expands them to tabs for me, so I don't have to push my spacebar 4 times in a row to make an indentation in Python.
Disco?
Spaces for me. I started programming with Python, so Python developers usually use spaces. So yeah.
Yeah. When I started programming, like there were no indents basically. There were line numbers though. Like anyone here remembers line numbering?
You need to
Maybe
enable
KrzaQ?
it in Vim. You need to enable line numbering in Vim. So
Oh, but that's not it. You had to like literally before every line you write, you had to enter the line number. Like for example,
But isn't it only in BASIC?
not only in BASIC. I think Fortran also had it.
Okay, I
But-
never touched those.
okay.
Yeah, you like literally had to write like 10 and then the command, and then like 20 and the command, and you used 10, 20, 30 and not 1, 2, 3, 4, because then if you wanted to include something between the lines, you know, if you had like 1, 2, 3, you were stuck. But if you had 10, 20 and so on, you could do 15 and the new line there. So yeah, there were tricks. Thankfully, I think like in the first 2 or 3 basics I used, I had to use line numbering, and then Microsoft had released their Q basic on Microsoft DOS, which moved to like you didn't have to number lines anymore. You could, but you didn't have to. Yeah, but I'm also in the team spaces. Perfect. Let's see. anything you found on the chat which you would like to discuss, folks?
Yeah.
Well,
How many?
okay,
Okay, KrzaQ.
your turn.
Okay, so I'm always 4 spaces. Either one tap equals 4 spaces or just 4 spaces now.
Yeah, we are getting to destroying the friendship here.
Actually,
Yeah.
I have to stay with KrzaQ, so 4 spaces.
4
Oh my.
spaces as well.
Yeah, I'm in a 2 spaces camp. But so for me, a tab is 8 spaces, but indentation is 2 spaces.
There's a
Wow.
question about, probably when you ask about games, how about war games? And I think that I don't consider war games as games and gaming and, first-person shooters, because these are the only games I can and I know how to play, or I think that I know how to play. But well, war games are pretty much CPF stuff, and I think that probably not every one of us have done some in our lives. I don't know. How about you four guys?
Anyone wants to chat about doing war games?
Yep.
The only not nice thing about doing war games is that you have to log in somewhere to like make the result count for your account into like WeChat platform. I had issues with that with one of the platforms before, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to like waste time logging in there, and just did some challenges instead.
Okay. Here's a question. Have you ever had any legal problems due to hacking or pen testing? Or I guess programming. We can extend it to programming. You can get into trouble with programming. It's quite interesting. So did you have any legal trouble which you can talk about and which your lawyer wouldn't say, yeah, you probably shouldn't?
No for me.
Same here, not really.
My lawyer also confirms. Yeah, it's an interesting question. Let me put it like this. I work with lawyers sometimes, and I like reading law, so I kind of know where the boundary is and how to not get in trouble. And it's a good advice I would give. Like, if you're into security, know the law, know where the boundary is, and know how to not get into trouble. I guess I talked a little bit about it more on the last episode, which was about how to get into hacking. So here's a little advertisement about my other live streams. Do any of you do tabletop RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons, Warhammer, Middle-earth, role-playing games?
I would love to, but never had the chance.
I did a few times previously, so D&D, Warhammer, and Earthbound for me. But I would actually like to do it again. But I didn't for a few years, so. But
I would love to, but I have never played.
Yeah, I did play a lot at the end of primary school. We had like our own system, which was kind of based on Middle-earth role-playing. And we had our own because it was like super expensive to get any books, and we just couldn't afford. So at the end, we got one book, and we kind of derived the system from that. It was quite funny. I wasn't usually playing. I was usually the game master. I would love to play more, and I know there are some really good services for playing online. So like, which basically have a tabletop where the game master can like draw and other stuff, and like put some resources, and you basically have a voice chat where with which you can play. We did play back in the days also using IRC, which was quite funny because you have to type a lot, especially as a game master. But what you could do is you could like split the team and basically tell them, yeah, like you are going left, so we are going to this channel, and you are leaving this channel, and then they would not know what they are doing, which could lead into some pretty interesting scenarios. especially when one team started scaring the other team without them knowing it was just by them. We should play sometimes. What do you do for a living? That's actually a good question. I think almost everyone already said what you are doing for a living, but can we get a little bit deeper in it? I guess I can start, though, like just as an example. So what I do for a living is I'm a technical leader / manager at a Google security team. And my work is basically split half and half into management. And this is more like people management. And the other half would be basically internal vulnerability research / programming. There also is a bit of electronics there. So I did also solder for my job, which I'm super happy about. Yeah, that's basically it. So anyone wants to get into more details, what do they do at their work? Perfect, Foxtrot, you're first.
Okay,
because
so
you're smiling, so.
Well, because I was looking disconnected and wishing that he'll take the first turn. But, well, I'm a pen tester, so basically I'm testing the security of the usually web applications, and I do some research, especially in IoT, because that's pretty hot topic nowadays.
You mean easy targets?
Yeah.
I can go next. So I'm a security engineer at Stellardrone, and I'm doing security audits of software. Mostly like, usually it's like Go or Rust applications, sometimes like blockchain ones, but I kind of dived away from the blockchain ones recently. Sometimes it's like low-level C and C++ or some embedded related things, but not very much. And so, yeah.
Okay, KrzaQ, what do you do?
So, as I said, I work in Backtrace.io. We mostly, or I think only, work with bug reports in mostly compiled programs. So we aggregate, discover common traits, parse, propagate, blah, 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 blah. Basically, we are a tool to handle massive scale bug reports. And yeah, I do develop new features and maintain the old ones. And I am just a tiny cog in the wheel, so, that's it.
Perfect. So, okay, I have 2 ideas for a question, but one on a chat just came out. Do you watch anime or like read manga, I guess? If so, which one is your favorite?
Yes, no. And I mean, let me start, I guess.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh yeah, so I did try reading mangas, but I just couldn't get past it being black and white, because I never found it really readable. So I usually waited for the manga to be animized. And as for animes, I do not watch a lot of them, but my favorite would be, I think, Code Geass. Yep. Or
Okay.
perhaps Death Note. Yep.
Death Note, yeah, it's a classic. Okay, disconnected.
Not really for me. I used to watch a bit in the past, but I don't really watch it anymore. Yeah. So I remember, for example, I watched Neon Genesis Evangelion. That was quite nice.
Another classic. Okay, Foxtrot.
Well, I'm not into manga or anime, but few months ago, Ginvale, you sent and recommended me some anime, I guess, because it was movie.
Yeah, I tried to like force Foxtrot to take a try.
Yeah, and it was nice, but I don't remember the title. So, well, I liked it, but it's not something that I have to watch every day to live. So, but definitely I will try in the future. Probably, maybe you suggest something.
Yeah, he doesn't want to get fired. Yeah. I guess you can already figure out that I do watch some anime. It was quite funny because like back in the days I was kind of laughing about anime, like what is being stupid, and then I like started watching a lot of it. So yeah, serves me right. And I'm not sure if I could say which one is my favorite. From the recent ones I watched, Promised Neverland is a pretty good like thriller horror story. So if you're into that, but it's pretty nice. Apart from that, I really enjoy like Ghost in the Shell, including Standalone Complex and so on. Also, Full Metal Panic was super entertaining. And I also watched it recently. And I also like Haikyuu, which is totally a different type of anime. Like it's a sports anime, but it's super fun to watch. Cool. So now let's move to the next question, which would be, what's your favorite programming language? Foxtrot, let's go with you.
Well, that's really good question. But well, I'm not a programmer. I do not consider myself to be good at programming. In everyday life, I use Python because I have to create some ad hoc scripts for proof of concepts. But I really enjoy programming in Golang or in Rust, and I'm sorry that I haven't mentioned Perl or C++. But well, I like not write only languages, and C++ is the compilers aren't helping, because when you are trying to achieve your goal pretty quick and you get a few screens of error that say nothing to you, well, that's not pleasant. So I will stand with Python and then probably Golang and Rust.
Quite a lot of languages there. Perfect. Okay, Disco, you're next.
Python for me. I started with it and I did like most of the coding with it. I coded in other languages, like even professionally as well. But in Python you can script like a lot of stuff fairly easy and fast. So usually that's what I need, and it fits my need.
Okay, KrzaQ. I'm guessing it's C++, but I also know you coded in D.
So there are 3 basic languages that are a part of my toolset. It's D, C++, and Ruby, and the ordering here is random. I'm passably competent in Python, but I prefer Ruby way more because I like the way you can manipulate data and model it and make the code represent the way I model it mentally. But yeah, those 3 I would say are my basic tools. I do want to learn Rust in the future. I mean, I already can do some basic stuff in it, but I don't know if I will actually like it. So yeah.
Okay, that's fair. In my case, it would be Python, C++, some assembly, some JavaScript. I would say. I also like PHP, but I'm not coding as much in PHP as I did. And from these languages, C++ and PHP and JavaScript are not languages which I would recommend because they have a lot of issues. I still love them though, so there we go. Okay.
I saw a question on the chat, and actually it was repeated on the Discord. So will there be any stream about vulnerability research or zero-day hunting in the future? And about zero-day hunting, I think that Gunveil has responded to that because of some legal reasons, or maybe firing 0 days live. It is not the best idea to do it. But we are thinking about doing some HTB or Hack the Box. Actually, we sat with the guys from Hack the Box, and we are talking about doing a live stream about it. And probably we can do some pony races on this topic on specially crafted vulnerabilities that we wouldn't be allowed to know before the stream, because this won't cause us or any vendors any troubles, but you have to ask Ginvin about it. That was one of the suggestions I made to do this on this stream to celebrate 100 episodes, but maybe in the future. I don't know, what do you think, guys?
So yeah, that's basically the problem, that if we do vulnerability research on live stream, we will probably find something. And since I trust our skills, so the problem is that if we find something, then this is basically full disclosure, and I respect full disclosure, but I'm not a huge fan of it. So I prefer to do vendor coordinated disclosure, which is sometimes called responsible disclosure, but the difference is that in responsible disclosure, the vendor controls when the vulnerability is released, and I prefer to just say that, yeah, like 90 days or something. Like, we cannot leave vulnerabilities unpatched for too long. It has been proven multiple times in the past that a vulnerability can be found by other parties as well. So another thing I'm thinking about, another way to approach it is actually to, when I would have time, or like anyone here would like to do that, to do any vulnerability research or like bug bounty or whatever, and record the desktop while doing that, and then make a video out of that, that would actually be a solution to all the problems, I think. So yeah, we could just like record the session, then while commentating, and then basically after it's reported, after it's fixed, you can just put it on YouTube. And that's something I'm considering as well. I just need to find some time to do any, put additional security research into my schedule, basically. Now for Hack the Box, this is an excellent idea, and I'm the problem why we haven't done it yet, because I didn't put familiarizing myself with the platform to my schedule yet either. So yeah, apologies for that. That's on me. Perfect. Now, are you guys, all of you guys are from Poland, right? Anyone wants to comment on that?
Yes.
Currently sitting in Ginvey's basement, but yes.
My basement in
from
Poland. Yeah, everyone's here is from Poland. Though I do not live in Poland, but I am from Poland as well. Okay. Funny enough, no one of them said JavaScript. I did mention JavaScript. Yeah, I did also mention that I would not recommend it, but I don't mind. Like, creating UIs in JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, I do prefer that over any other approach I used in the past. It's way better and way easier to do and way nicer looking than anything I used in the past. Now, I'm not a huge fan of solutions like Discord or Slack use, where basically they take a browser, like a headless browser, and basically like put HTML and JavaScript on top of it, and they say this is like a standalone application, because this has issues, but maybe someday. Okay, what's next, folks? Oh, that's a nice one. Any podcasts you can recommend that you like listening to, or you can recommend folks to listen to?
I have to check my iPhone podcast list because I don't remember the name, but I think that one is in English probably, because when you are from Poland, you can check out cyber or cyber, as we say it in Polish. That's made by Fundacja Bezpieczna Cyberprzestrzeń, and they are talking about security. But in English, I have Defensive Security Podcast, and I highly recommend that. And there is another one about privacy, but I cannot find it, and I don't remember the name of the podcast. Probably someone in the chat can help me with that. And there's a guy from United States, and he's pretty paranoid about living in modern world. And actually, he has a book about gaining privacy back, but I will find it and I will post it later, probably.
Yeah, put it on your Twitter. Everyone here has a Twitter account, I believe. So if you want to follow something, then like follow these people. Okay, I guess you are on this side of my screen. Yeah, front camera. Disconnected KrzaQ, any podcast recommendations about programming, security, anything live?
I'm afraid
Mhm.
I'm incompatible with podcasts. I did try listening to some, even the very well-liked CPP cast, but it's just not for me.
It's not for me either, but I liked listening to like Semi-Half podcasts. It's like a company from Poland. And well, they have podcasts in Polish, but they are about low-level topics, so that's nice.
Yeah, I also listen to them. I tried also listening to Bits und So, that's a German podcast. And I also listened to some electronic podcasts. Like I think Hackaday had a podcast, but like I'm not sure if they're still coming out. And there was another one which was Spark Gap, I believe, which was I found like super informational for me when I was starting with electronics. I'm not saying I'm good with electronics. I'm still starting with it, but I still find super interesting stuff there. Now, I also listen to some podcasts related to like the economy, or like how do stocks work? How do there was actually a non-profit organization in Poland with lawyers who helped private investors, like small investors, who owned stocks in other companies, where the other companies basically do not really respect small investors, and they were talking about like the legal issues there and so on. For some reason, I really got a liking for legal stuff, and that is because I found out after reading a lot of protocol specifications and technical documentations in IT, I found out that's in the law, it's the same language being used. So yeah, and I suddenly found it interesting. So that's it. No hacking podcasts on my list, though, sadly. Oh, that's a nice question. Any of you play chess? Yeah,
Not really.
KrzaQ.
Okay, so I do not play chess. I do watch a lot of chess with Grandmaster commentary, and I find it very interesting, but I suck at the game myself.
Okay, maybe Go. And not Go the language, Go the game. Like.
I only watched one game of Go, and it was Lee Sedol against AlphaGo. And it was very interesting, though I did not understand the game itself at all. And I do not mean I did not understand the rules, because they are quite simple, but whatever happened on the board, it was way over my head.
Anyone else? Any Go, Japanese chess, any classical board games like that? What about?
I'm watching chess, and there is a Polish channel. The guy is recording or talking about some historical matches or games. Let's go with games, and using quite shaped language that I really admire. And he's talking about some games of masters in chess, but that's pretty much all my interaction with this game. Actually, I suck at it. It's KrzaQ. So we could probably play in the future, because as far as we are not the greatest one in this field, we can enjoy playing together or against each other, because there are no teammates in chess and on war, probably.
That's true. Okay, Disco, Go, chess, anything like that?
I used to play a little bit of chess with my family, like very, very long time ago, and I played a few times with my friends, but I don't really watch it or play it, so I would say no.
Yeah, similar for me. I played some chess, I played some Go, but that was always like super beginner level at most, not really a lot of games either. Here's a nice question. Did you guys ever have a holy shit, what did I get myself into moments? I'll start. Yes, when I was writing my first book after 100 pages, when there were still 400 pages to write left, I totally had like, what did I get myself into? Like, this is going to take so much time and so much work. That was like the biggest moment like that. I never had such a moment in security research. Just like that. So yeah, any other comments on that question, folks?
Definitely yes. So at one of my jobs, I will not say which one, we had this one 5,000 line JavaScript file that was a console program that did everything. And I was supposed to add a feature to it. And when I opened it, it crashed my Sublime.
Sorry, that's amazing.
Yeah. The second time I opened it, it did not crash. And I added my 300 lines of a feature. So it was like almost 6,000 lines in total committed. And I did manage, but I still think this one has problems. Yeah. And the other one is in my current job. I did look into the code base the first time, and it's a pretty big code base in pure C. So there is a lot of code in some places. I'm very happy with both code style and code quality right now, but still getting into a new big and existing project is quite something. So yeah, I was a little scared in the beginning.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, this
For
go
me,
short.
Probably when I was writing master thesis, similar feeling as you, Genvale. And also when I wanted to start like a YouTube channel, and I like wrote half of the script for a video and started to learn some tools, and I was like, well, maybe no, or not now.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Foxtrot, about you?
Well, I had, of course, such a situation. One of them was, well, it was Friday afternoon, I think. And just before finishing the job, I put this last payload in the burp repeater and clicked send it. And I got a response and closed my laptop, went outside, and after about 15 minutes, I got a call from my teammate saying, well, you know that you have crashed that system, and that's a government system and stuff like that. And that was the time that I was thinking, well, I have to tell my boss about it. But actually, the guys, the system admins, were on their positions, and I want to apologize for ruining their Friday. But they managed to put it up and running really quickly. So yeah, but that was the case. I was really scared. But after the time, I think that I was pretty lucky because they were there and could set up things the right way. So remember, never trust HTTP responses, because it was 200 okay, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I remember I was kind of scared when I was doing a penetration test of a hospital, of like even running scanners, because for all I knew the scanner was connected to like some respirator somewhere, some other like heart monitor with like AED capabilities, and the last thing I wanted to do is to break a system like that connected to a live person. So yeah, pen tests are fun. Okay, there's a question about bug bounties, but we already chatted about bug bounties earlier on. So
There was a question. Okay,
yes, sir, go ahead.
Go ahead again, Brehm.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if you're just joined and you're wondering what's up, this is the 100th live stream. So this is basically my team. which is helping me with the live streams, which is like making them possible for me. And we decided to have a chat today. Perfect. You were going to say?
Well, there was a question, what are your favorite tools? And I guess that's a question for us. So, Pinvale, can you start? I will make a bet that it is IDA, but probably it's
no,
not.
my favorite tool would be Sublime plus Python console right now. I think I can get most of my work is about one of these tools. Apart from that, I really like if we are talking about tools, right? IDA is amazing. So is Binary Ninja in its own right. So is Ghidra in its own right. So is Total Commander. Total Commander is just a file manager, but I have been like basically raised on Norton Commander, so a switch to Total Commander was pretty natural for me, and it's the best file manager for me ever, and it speeds my work a lot. Then I would say Wireshark is a surprisingly good tool. On top of that, there's this network monitor tool, network miner tool, which almost nobody uses, which is also pretty cool for that stuff. And I'm also going to say, there's one more which I wanted to enumerate. Oh yeah, and I also wanted to give a shout out to whoever made GIMP and whoever made Inkscape. I know these are not security tools, but I do really a lot of weird things sometimes. Like for example, I did the prize award bank check, like the large one, designed for the Dragon CTF last time. So I also spent some time both in GIMP and in Inkscape. So props to whoever did these tools. Okay, now I don't know. Let's go downstairs. KrzaQ.
Okay, so just a few months ago, I would start exactly the same as you with Sublime Text, but for like 6 or 7 weeks, I'm using VS Code, and I find it even better despite the technology behind it. So yeah, so I'm really into it right now, and I guess that's my main tool lately. I think that's the only code editor that I've used in the last 6 weeks, I would say. And other than this, I think that's it. I also use a lot of MOBA Extern, which is a SSH client with tabs, which I use on Windows. So I guess that's it.
Okay, let's go. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I would also like to thank people behind GIMP because I use it a lot, but I don't think I used enough to to warrant saying that it's a tool that I really like. Okay, next.
Shall I say Pwn debug? Well,
that's
maybe
fair
now,
to say.
Like, it's a nice tool. It makes its job, but it could be much better. I would say hacked, kinda, like all of these GDB plugins. But if like regarding a favorite tool, I would say IDEs from JetBrains. So I tried like Sublime and VS Code, and I might move to VS Code because it has some like plugins for things that I need. But for now, it's mostly like JetBrains IDEs. Whenever I need to like do some coding or auditing, it's good. Also Vim and doing some very fast testing or scripting, it's IPython. The console is really good.
Okay, Foxtrot, you're last.
Well, so definitely my favorite tool is Vim because it's pretty much everywhere, or you can get it everywhere, even on smartphone. Probably it's not the best way to use Vim, but still you can do it. And recently I'm into web fuzzers and stuff like that because I'm still learning. And
sorry, I'm going to ask you: is it Vim because of Stockholm syndrome? Like you just cannot get out?
No, because I want to be a terminal cowboy, and that's why I pinned Ghidra, the compiler, to the Radar 2 instead of using Ghidra, and that's why I'm using Vim. probably I'm not using Ghidra because it's written in Java, but that's another point, and I won't start the holy war in the comments. And then there is this new tool written in Golang. It's called FUFAS. It is probably I butchered the name, but it is ported WFAS from Python to Golang, and it's really, really fast. Okay, so there's some guy on the chat who is using Emacs, saying that, well, Vim is not the best editor. I know, but fortunately you can put and run Vim inside Emacs, so your system could have great text editor.
Perfect. Yeah, let's start a holy war on chat. Perfect. Let's do that. Okay, there's a really fun question on the chat. Oh, by the way, before we get there, one more tool. I shout out to browser vendors. Like Chrome is an amazing tool, so is Firefox. I'm pretty sure Edge is too, but I didn't use it long enough to take to get it to know.
I wish I could still use Firefox 56.
I wish I could still use Netscape Navigator. Yeah, but time passes. Yeah, but especially if you compare the current browsers with all the development tools and debuggers and benchmarks and performance checks and so on to the state which was at the beginning of the web or like beginning of the internet in Poland, then yeah, like they went a long way and these tools are pretty amazing nowadays. Cool. So the question which I said it was fun was the biggest embarrassing bummer in I'm going to like make it a little bit more general in your field that happened to you. For example, in case of security, did you get hacked or like release some security issue in a wrong way or something like that? I'm going to start. Let me think. There were two things. First, on DEF CON CTF finals, I misplaced the target and the sync servers so that instead of my exploit, automated exploit, I've it hacking a different team and getting the flag to our sync. It was hacking our server and sending them the flag. Yeah, I realized it after 5 minutes, thankfully, but I was pretty ashamed after that. Apart from that, let me think. I got hacked. I didn't get hacked really, kinda, sorta. I did fall for clickjacking once. Out of all things, I fell for clickjacking. That is like a shameful thing to admit, I know. And apart from that, when I was starting with malware research, one thing you want to do is you want to have your download directory not executable and you want to change the malware extension to VXE, like virus executable, right? You do not want to keep it as .exe and you do not want to press by accident enter on it, because that's what happened to me, and I spent next 4 hours frantically debugging and like analyzing the malware so I can know what happened to my system and how to remove it. So yeah, that's a good and really motivating way to learn. Don't do it. Don't do it at home, kids. Yeah, anyone else wants to share any horror stories?
Well, I was hacked, or maybe not hacked, because the person who was hacking me and he had my permission started to recover my passwords and for one of the portals in the internet, and I was able to cut his kill chain in the middle, because at the end of this chain there was my email from third grade or something like that with stupid recovery question with true answer. So I was pretty much hacked, but I have seen this pop up on Gmail that, well, somebody wants to recover your password, is it you or something like that? And then I thought, okay, so I should probably change all my passwords from there to there, and I wasn't hacked. The second thing didn't happen to me, but to my friend, and he's a really great hacker, and sometimes he watches gameplay stream, so hi. And I don't I didn't knew him. I didn't know him at this time, but he thought that he did a root shell on the server, but it was his machine.
Oh yeah, then famous. Like, I'm a hacker, I'm going to hack you. No, you're not going to hack me. Yeah, what's your IP? It's 127.001. There were a lot of jokes back in the days about that. Yeah, that happened. I'm pretty sure I got, like, on several CTFs I had the same situation with, like, oh, my exploit is working, where is the flag? And then I realized, like, oh, this is my file system. I run it locally. It happens. Yeah. Disco, anything you want to share?
Yeah, I had a situation where I made a backup of my disk, an encrypted one, and I put it on an external drive, but the password to this backup was in a key pass that was also stored in this encrypted drive. And when I lost my PC, because I was like doing a format basically, so I didn't have the password for the encrypted drive, and I lost like this backup, but I had another one, but that cost me a bit of time to like bring back some files later on.
Yeah, I destroyed one of my hard drives by installing Linux. That was like 95, I believe. And yeah, I had like... I thought when it's asking me about the like what file system type I want, I thought it would actually just convert my old file system. Guess what? It didn't. Yeah, bye-bye data.
So yeah,
Similar problem with Windows, actually. I had a write YOLO, which is write 0. Out of 4 disks, I was installing a new Windows on a separate disk, but it decided that it sees an empty 8 terabyte disk, so it will overwrite the first 100 megabytes for this recovery or whatever partition, and it destroyed my data completely because it was an encrypted drive, so there was nothing to recover. Yeah, but back to the question, something recent, I think it's dated to January or February. I spent 3 hours debugging why my code doesn't work. Even called my friend from work. We connected over Hangouts, and I showed him my code. And his first question is, have you tried saving the file? So I have not. And that was the cause why my code change didn't work. Yep.
Yeah, happened to me too. The other mistake I made is I was editing for example, a copy of the file instead of the actual file, because I make a backup copy and I didn't realize I'm in the wrong directory. I'm in the backup directory copy, and like I'm editing in my backup copy of the file, and then I'm running the normal one, and I'm like, why is my change not appearing? I put like a puts, and it's like not outputting anything.
Yeah,
and
it was
took
very
me like 15
frustrating.
minutes. So yeah, the other thing that might have happened to you is or to some programmers, is when I compile a file like gcc asdf.cc-o asdf.cc. So I basically overwritten like my source file with an executable. That hurts.
Yes, it does happen. Yeah, but your story also reminded me that I think it was 2002 or 3. I don't remember exactly. I downloaded a malware sample. It was back then just called keylogger from a Polish site. I think it was hacksite.org or something. And my first instinct was to just run it, and I did run it, but it was still weaponized, so it was quite stupid. And I did lose my account in some game just a few hours later, so this could be connected.
Ouch.
Yeah, and one more thing, but that one was actually good. I created a basically bash org replacement site in PHP. It was obviously very, very basic, but it was nice because it was mine, and I stored my quotes from IRC and etc. there. And I had a SQL injection in the code. So a friend whom I didn't know at the time gained root on my OS and let me know that there is a bug in my code by replacing the code, the main page. But he wasn't malicious, and we are friends now, so it's quite cool. Shoutouts to Ringo. Okay.
Yeah. I had like similar issues. So you might know, folks, that I have a honeypot on my blog. If you like go to my blog address /admin, there's actually a honeypot there. Now the problem was that at one point I had an actual bug in my honeypot code, and someone found it, and they thankfully reported it. But it was a really nice blind SQL injection, which could access most of the stuff on my blog. So shout out to them. Okay, shall we move on to the next question then? Let's see.
Maybe just one tip: never put strong magnet on your hard drive, because you probably won't bot another time. I know that nowadays we are using SSD drives, but I had one with hard drive, and this strong magnets.
Like neodymium, you mean?
Yeah, them. So I put one on the corner of my laptop, and then I was trying to start my system, and well, it won't happen. So maybe it is connected, but I'm not 100% sure.
That's a nice one. Yeah, I always try to destroy my hard drives with magnets, but like on purpose, but I never got to. Maybe I should have done what you've done, like just put a neodymium on it and run it. That might be interesting. Cool. Any advice about exploit development or zero-day shellcoding or whatever? So any advice to anyone who's starting, I guess, with exploit development or looking for 0 days or for vulnerabilities or shellcoding?
Probably watch streams or videos, either from Ginvale or Live Overflow.
Or other people, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good tip because you can pick up really a lot of like their typical, let's call it like a workshop, like the things, the small things which they are doing and the small tricks which they are using, which might not be documented elsewhere or like easily findable elsewhere. So yeah, live streams is a really good idea to like just for the small tips and small hints you get from people. Any other thing? Actually, on my blog post, there's an FAQ about security vulnerability research, I believe. If you look there are some other tips how to look for vulnerabilities. You'll have to find it on my blog though. Cool. Any good books to master assembly? Anyone?
So there is this x86 86 poetry assembly book.
That was XCA, like Exchange EAX, right? That's the title of it.
I don't recall exactly, but it sounds right.
Or Racks, Exchange Racks, whatever. Yeah, it's a nice one. It's basically a book with just like assembly snippets, and you have to figure out what did the author have in mind? What is this supposed to do? Why is this interesting? And I actually like bought it and brought it to like one of the micro kitchens at Google. So like some people were trying to decipher it, and we like had a pen that basically tried to write next to it like what is this piece of code doing? Why is it smart? Why is it cunning? It's pretty good actually to try to decipher it. You learn a lot about assembly. I'm going to add Hacker's Delight, because Hacker's Delight is a book with, let's say, like optimized mathematical tricks in assembly. It's pretty cool. Apart from that, and here's also a question to the room: how many of you did read like Intel manuals, any volumes?
I wanted to suggest that you should probably not maybe read them, but have them aside and always look things up. Because I have never read all of them, but sometimes I just press Ctrl F and search for stuff, and I think that's what they are meant for. But you can probably have read some whole books, or you have even them in your bookshelf. And I wanted to ask you about experience. How is it to read manuals like page by page? Because I think that might be pretty tiring.
It's surprisingly interesting, actually. I did it when I started working at HISPASEC. That was ages ago, though. And okay, so you usually do not read volume 2 because volume 2 is just a list of instructions. But at the beginning and at the end of volume 2, there are some interesting, like one chapter basically at the beginning is like how the instruction is encoded. It's a really good chapter to read. Then volume 1 is basically basics of architecture. If you don't know it, it's worth just looking at. But volume 3 is actually amazing to read. You find so many magnificent pieces there which you would otherwise not look at. That's the system programming guide, basically. So volume 3, I would recommend reading it at least to through half of it, because I think it has 3 sub-volumes right now, like A, B, C. But if you just go through 3A, but tells you a lot about how the operating system uses the CPU and what kind of modes there are and how they work. And it's pretty fine to read it actually from like cover to cover, right? It's not as bad as you might expect, but on the other hand, yeah, usually use it as a reference. So what about you, Disconnected? What's your thoughts on it?
It's hard to say read the Intel manual because it's such huge. But I read a bit of it during my bachelor thesis, which was about basically optimizing C++ code, kind of related to data-oriented design and caching in processors. So that's it.
Okay. So I'm going to convert the question. Who here read the C++ standards?
You mean end-to-end?
For example, or end-to-end is pretty long, I guess, but most of it, for example.
I would say I am familiar with basically all of it, and I probably read 70% or more over the time.
Yeah, I would say similar for me. I think I read most from the C standard, basically cover to cover, less from C++. And I actually did skip most of the instruction descriptions from both C and C++. Yeah, go ahead.
I haven't read the standards. I looked through some of them, usually during some Stack Overflow searches, but I have read most of C and C++ FAQs. I know there are different ones currently, so I'm not sure which one was those, but yeah.
What about official specifications for other languages, like Python?
What would you say the official specification?
Well, for example, did you read all the PEPs?
Not all of them, but a lot of them, and I also read some of the source code of CPython, which I would call it to be the specification in the end.
That's kind of true.
Yeah.
Okay, what about you, Foxtrot?
Well, pretty much like Disconnected. I haven't read all of them, but if you write in Python, you have to use it, or probably someday you will find the reason to ask Pep about something, and then you reach out and find your answers.
Yeah. I also I +1 about the source code. I've also read parts of Python source code, a little more on PHP source code. And that's pretty informative. You can learn a lot. On top of that, I didn't read too many PEPs. I read some of them. I did, for some reason, read parts of JavaScript specification, though, like ECMAScript, actually, which is also pretty good to read. After you get you start to know something, at least on the intermediate level, it's good to start reading the official specs, I would say. Here's a nice question. So, if like everyone already said what kind of IT field they're in, right? If you'd if you had an opportunity to just change it to anything else, like for example, I'm no longer doing security. What could I do else? I would love to do game programming. I would also love to do electronics and firmware stuff. So that's on me. Like, what about you folks? Okay, KrzaQ, let's start.
Yeah, I think I would go with electronics and automatics. So I would like to perhaps be able to try my hand at programming PLCs, though seeing most of how it's coded right now, I think I would still prefer doing it like microcontrollers, so C or Rust.
So is it still done with graphs, like with graph-based languages?
Not really. I mean, that's how they showed it to me at the university, but it wasn't really true. There's mostly some kind of Pascal-like language that's called STM or something that kinda describes handler for each input line, and you, I guess, could work with it, but there is so much global state that it's really, really difficult to wrap your head around it, and yeah, I find it both cool and really difficult to, safely program, and it's basically impossible to test outside of the production line, actually.
Okay, Foxtrot.
Well, I'm the youngest one here, so I just got IT security, and probably I would like to stay here for a little bit longer. If I had the chance to choose another way, probably I would choose something and then go back to the IT security because I really love it. I like breaking stuff. And it is such a wide field that if I get bored with web apps or IoT, I can do another, for example, red teaming or breaking Active Directory and stuff like that. So for me, well, IT security is the way to go.
Perfect. Disco?
For me, either game development or some low-level programming, maybe operating systems or virtual machines. I guess that's a pretty interesting topic.
That's pretty nice. Okay, so on the Deeply Kind on chat says that as far as PLCs goes, ST is like Pascal and IL is like assembly. I do remember writing some assembly-like language for PLCs, but was on one of my internships actually. So did you folks actually do any internships? I guess I'll start. I did two. With one was with basically a local shop which was selling computers, and I was in the back room doing servicing them basically. And there were some funny stories from that. And my second internship was basically with an automation company which was doing some production lines for some manufacturing plants for car parts and other stuff. And I was doing stuff related to not really to PLC, but to getting the data from PLC and visualizing it. Okay, Foxtrot, any internships you done?
Well, I had one, and it's transformed into my current job.
That's nice. So nice way to go. Disconnected.
For me, it was a network provider, so I learned a bunch of networking stuff. And then I also had an internship in C++, C# company, which did some kind of Autodesk-like software for electronics.
That's cool.
But I was mostly doing some UI-related stuff, like actually porting some old C++ GUIs into C# ones, and I had to also connect the C# stuff to the old C or C++ libraries. So I learned about a bunch of stuff like how to call low-level functions and so on.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, KrzaQ, go for it.
Yeah, so I had one. It was in a outsourcing company that basically outsourced for, I think it was Nokia. And yeah, I don't really recall doing anything specific in this internship. It was kind of boring. That's all I remember. And it
Okay.
didn't translate into a job, but I did not like it. So yeah, there's that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Here's a nice question. How valuable are things you learned at your university with respect to your field? So, for example, that would be like stuff which I learned about security at my university, or like programming at my university. Okay, one of the blog posts I think I'm going to publish soon is an old blog post from my Polish blog where I basically say that whatever is on the university it's supposed to be an extra to what you are doing on your own. That's my take on it. So I've learned extra things which weren't like super crucial to what I'm doing, but I do like knowing them, and that was algorithmics and data structures. I've got like several courses from that, and I'm really happy to have learned that. I would not learn that on my own. Then like advanced mathematics basically, which I do not use advanced mathematics, but I like to which level it brought my high school mathematics, where now I feel like even if I look at some complex equations, I can like easily deal with them. And as for like actual security, which I had on my university, that was cryptography, but it wasn't ever super useful to the way I deal with applied crypto in my normal job, I would say. The basics were there, but it was kind of a different approach, more mathematical approach than applied crypto I'm used to. So there we go. As for programming, there was a lot of programming, but I already, apart from learning new languages and polishing my skills, I already knew programming when going to a university, though I did hone a bit my skill more, which I'm also quite happy. So I would say that university gave me a lot of time to practice my skills on my own and added extra knowledge, which I would not, apart from the university, which I would not learn, but it comes from time to time to be useful for me, and it also like expanded my perspective on the whole IT field, which I'm also grateful for. So that's my take on it. I don't know, anyone disagrees, anyone agrees? We can go with disconnected first.
I
Since
agree
I'm
with what
pointing
you
fingers.
said. I could also add that if there is a particular topic you like, at a lot of universities you can try to convince some staff member to like start a class about it. It doesn't work everywhere, but sometimes it works. Another thing is that you could potentially like do some external course as part of your normal course. For example, I did the Coursera class from cryptographic class from Coursera as part of my university. That was not easy to like convince the dean about it and get it, but you can do that sometimes. And to answer the question, like how valuable are the things you learn in university? So if we speak about like the things I do at the job, I didn't learn a lot of security at the university. I learned it mostly by myself. But programming and algorithms, data structures, and maybe like some tools that you probably wouldn't learn otherwise, and also the cool projects that you can do sometimes. Like the nice thing is also that you can put yourself in situations which you wouldn't do otherwise, and then you can see if you like, I don't know, embedded stuff or some web development and things like that. So that's a really nice thing from university, I think. And the last thing is, if you really have to do something at university, like bachelor or master thesis, I personally think it's good to like choose a nice topic that you would enjoy, or at least you would want to dive deeper into, so you can kind of not waste the time you put into this. And
Yeah, plus one
that's
to
how
that.
it would work for me.
I totally agree. University gives a lot of opportunities, and probably there are a lot of people you should meet or talk to because they have knowledge and some abilities to make some things happen. So I think that if you engage in your studies and study by yourself and then use these opportunities given by these people at the university, you are pretty good with that and can learn a lot. Unfortunately, as far as security is concerned, I have learned and I'm still learning by myself. But probably on Politechnika Poznańska we will change that in the future. I hope so.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
So you guys actually, I think, answered a different question than I understood it as being asked. So I will try to answer both. So I both agree and disagree with you. So first, I understood the question is, does the university in and of itself teaches you anything valuable? And to that, I would say, nope. I think that anything that you learn there is exactly outside of the, maybe not of the house, but outside of the courses, because most of the courses, be it programming or anything else, are quite basic, but their main, the main idea behind them is to broaden your horizon. So basically, you know what there is to know, so that you can, deepen your knowledge on your own. And in this regard, it's actually very important. So I also agree that I probably wouldn't, or I would learn advanced maths way later, and this is actually very, very, very important. And other than this, I definitely did not learn any programming from the university courses. I did learn on my own, also during my university time, but I don't know if I should, give the credit to the university for something that I did very much outside of it. And yeah, I think the biggest and most important thing about university is the networking that you get by knowing people who are also into this field, because in most cases they will be the people that you recommend or who recommend you to jobs. And I guess that's it. Although I do agree that there are some specific courses that could be very useful.
Yeah. And everyone who's watching who's from different parts of the world, do take into account that all of us were actually going to Polish universities. It might be different in different parts of the world depending on what's the actual approach of the academic society towards teaching.
I was really, really disappointed that I could not choose my courses, or maybe I could, but it was like one course out of 8, and it was only like in the last 2 terms out of 7. So it was basically predefined set of courses that you will have to take, and some of them, are, at least at my university, were just created so that some lecturers wouldn't have to be let go. So
Yeah, one of the things I remember doing on universities is basically with a bunch of friends, we, at the beginning of each semester, we went to some programming course professors and asked them if we could just not go to the course every week and instead create some rather ambitious project, like a ray tracing engine, a game, some other kind of project. And usually they were like, yeah, fine, just if you do this ambitious thing, you can get a good grade. And we learned a lot about teamwork, about working, doing larger projects instead of doing lists of tasks that usually there are.
Yeah, there is
So-
one thing that I was really surprised later on that was actually very useful, and it was something that you do learn at the university, and it's the documentation that you have to create to your projects. Because when you create your own projects, you basically, especially if you are, a young programmer, you will not document them. You will just happily write the code and create the program. It works, everything's perfect. But if you create anything for your company, that's not the way that they want to get the code.
So yeah, so on the same topic, actually, I didn't have a lot of electronics on my university, just like one or two courses. And on one course, we basically were doing measurements of like some really simple circuits, and you had to create a report for each measurement. And both I and like the rest of my class were like, yeah, this is like a pain to make. But like looking from that perspective, I'm actually really grateful to being forced to make the reports, because now when I'm doing research for my own, I have a habit of making good notes, which I can later use for a report which would be a like vulnerability description sent to somebody, or a blog post or something else. So a habit of making notes from that class was pretty a good thing I've learned. And like universities are kind of like, they are pretty amazing, not because of the courses, but because of the people which are there, and the people who have like clubs, like computer clubs, programming clubs, and so on. And you have to sometimes help them to teach you as well. And remember that there are people there, like everyone's already an adult, and you can like negotiate and chat with the professors, and they're people at the end of the day. So yeah, you can learn a lot if you just allow it.
Speaking of the measurements, there is one course that I do remember that, okay, I don't think I needed to know as much as I did learn on it, but it was called metrology, and it's basically a study of measurement, and it gave me a lot of insight into, when a measurement is precise, how many digits of the measurement can you trust, and etc. It was quite enlightening, and it's definitely something that I wouldn't even know to look up on my own.
Yeah. Anyone wants to comment on this topic? No? Okay, then the last question, since we are reaching the 2-hour boundary, is going to be, if you had 30 seconds of a live stream which you could send then to your high school self, what advice would you give yourself? So I will start with that. 30 seconds, go. The date, 2002 12 28, the numbers for the lottery, 11 17 32 33 37 40. Thank you, good luck. Okay, anyone else? Foxtrot, you go.
Well, learn programming, and I mean, really learn it, because it really helps in security. Probably you can go without it, but it really helps. And well, I have to learn on my own mistakes.
All right, make a business out of it. That's it.
Probably learn programming.
Yeah, I guess I should answer seriously as well. I don't know, what you said I really liked. I don't think I'm going to add anything to it. Like,
And
these
there's
advices or something.
really one tiny question for guys who don't use Windows, so sorry, Ginville. Which distro do you use? And by the way, I use Arch. Sorry, I had to mention that.
Okay, Ubuntu for me.
Ubuntu if we speak Linux, but I am currently on macOS. So
Okay, so I'm forced to use Ubuntu sometimes, but my main distro is Arch Linux. I used to use Gentoo, so on my low-end computer like 10 years ago, I sometimes waited 20, 30 hours to build Xorg and OpenOffice. But right now I'm just, updating my Pacman. And I find this distro like the cleanest, because you don't get anything out of the box, or almost anything. So yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, back in the days I used Slackware and SUSE Linux before that. One more advice someone on the chat said, which probably we all should have said, is buy Bitcoin to our past selves. Okay. I think we can finish that for the day.
And
The next
sell
week
it
is going to
by
be normal.
January 2020.
Oh yeah, that's also true. So, okay, any last words? Any goodbyes?
See you tomorrow if you speak Polish.
Yeah. Feel free to join even if you don't.
Sorry.
Yeah, this.
See you in the internet.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm going to just say the same thing. See you everyone, and yeah. Let's meet next week. Let's meet tomorrow, and I'm going to leave you folks with some music. So, bye bye.